Hello everyone, welcome to Lukmaan IAS. Today we are going to have the Hindu newspaper analysis dated 16th of March 2022. So let us quickly look into the topics that are important for the day. So these are some of the important articles from the Hindu newspaper dated 16th of March 2022. So the first topic is related to the eclipse of sovereign equality. So this topic is very important. It talks about the international law, international norms. Okay. So we are going to discuss about some of the most prominent principles that are there in the international law. So we are going to discuss about it in today's discussion. And then the second topic is related to the government approves PLI plan for 75 auto farms. PLI stands for performance linked incentive. Okay. So or production linked incentive, and this particular production linked incentive has two components for the auto sector. So we will discuss about like for which component the government has approved the production linked incentive plan. Okay. And the third topic is related to United Nations resolution focuses on only one religion. So in this article we will understand about the United Nations resolution, the resolution that was adopted at the United Nations General Assembly, and it has some religious connotations. And the representative of India has responded to this particular this particular resolution, citing India's concern related to it. Okay, so we are going to understand in detail about what is India's concern related to the UN resolution that was recently adopted. Okay, for 15th of March. I mean, like the UN resolution was adopted that 15th of March will be declared as International Day against Islamophobia. So we are going to discuss about it. And next topic is related to growing price pressures. Okay, so this particular article is important under economy section, and this article will help you to understand like how prices of goods and services fluctuates when like Indian economy, okay, or economies like India faces some pressure because of international turmoil in the wake of Russia and Ukraine war. Okay. And next topic is related to high crude oil prices are unsustainable. So in this article we will understand about what the finance ministry talks about high crude oil prices. Okay, so the crude oil prices are going up. Why the prices are going up? Because in international market the price of oil, okay, it has become very very high because unavailability of oil, because like Russia has stopped export of oil related products. Okay, so because of this particular thing, the globally many countries are facing difficulty, okay, in procuring oil related products. So that's why we will discuss about like why high crude oil prices are unsustainable for India. Okay, then the next topic is related to Indian diplomacy. Okay, in this topic we will understand about like what this article talks about Indian diplomacy and how the present situation can be related with the situation that was prevalent in 1991 during the during the tenure of Prime Minister Narasimha Rao. So during his tenure, like many foreign policy decisions have been taken. And so this article takes us back to the 1991 era. Okay, it takes us back 30 years. Okay, so this article talks about Bharatnatyam in Indian diplomacy. Okay, so we will discuss about many foreign diplomatic relations, like the relations that we have built with different countries. Okay, why it takes us back to 1991? Because in 1991 USSR had disintegrated. After the disintegration of USSR, 15 countries emerged out of it, and at that point of time India wanted to forge relation with all those countries that had come out of the USSR. Okay, so then like under the Prime Minister of Narasimha Rao, like there was a foreign secretary. That foreign secretary had taken proactive measures to shape the international relations of India with those countries that are actually that have actually become pivotal in India's relation with those countries. Okay, so let us start the discussion with the first topic. Okay, so this topic discusses about the eclipse of sovereign equality. the Ukraine crisis has again ushered in the might is right world order, where all equal, but some are more equal than others. Okay, so this article actually talks about the concept of sovereign equality. What do we mean by sovereign equality? It also discusses about like why sovereign equality is getting eclipsed. Okay, so let us discuss about what is sovereign equality. Like before the world war began, like all the countries around the world, they had individual standing in the world as compared and this individual standing was because of their economic power, their foreign relations, and also because of their military might, right? But after World War I, countries have realized that world war is something that should never have been fought. Okay, then they have made a body, okay, a global body. So that body was envisaged that it will stop another war from happening. But what has happened after few years, okay, after few years, the Second World War also happened, and in the Second World War more number of countries had participated. All right, more number of countries have participated, and Second World War was witnessed to be one of the major world wars. I mean, this was much bigger in terms of number of casualty, number of people who have died, and in terms of economic losses that these countries have faced. But in the wake of this particular situation, what has happened, they have created another body, or they have revamped the previous body, and they have given this body the name United Nations Organization. As of now, the United Nations General Assembly have 193 countries, and the United Nations Organization had adopted the principle of sovereign equality. According to the principle of sovereign equality, all the countries are equal in the eyes of international law. Okay, in legal sense, in the sense of jurisprudence, all the countries, irrespective of their geographical territory, irrespective of their economic strength, irrespective of their military capabilities, all the countries that are sovereign, they are equal with one another. Okay, so they have created, they have adopted the principle of sovereign equality. So according to sovereign equality, all the countries will be treated equal. Similar, this connotation has similar sense as all the citizens in India are equal in front of law. Okay, in front of law, every citizen is or are equal. But the citizens may have different capabilities, they have different level of finance, they have different level of education, but everyone is equal in the eyes of the law. Similarly, in the eyes of international law, all sovereign states or all sovereign countries are equal. Okay, but what has happened, the recent situation because of Russia's war on Ukraine. Okay, so it has brought this particular concept into limelight again, because if all countries are equal, then a body such as United Nations Organization having 193 member countries, this should have been able to stop the war from happening in the first place. Okay, this should have been able to bring peace before the war could have been waged. But now this body was not successful enough in curbing the war. This is one thing. Apart from this, this was one of the situation. Apart from this, since Russia means if we talk about the United Nations Security Council, the United Nations Security Council has only 5 permanent members, and these 5 permanent members have veto power. Okay, so there was a UN resolution that was adopted. Okay, a resolution was adopted against Russia in the Security Council, and Russia has vetoed against it. Okay, since Russia has vetoed, nothing can be moved. And apart from this, Beijing or China, okay, it has abstained from voting, and at the same time India has also abstained from voting. Okay, so since India is not a permanent member, okay, Russia is a permanent member, so it has vetoed that particular thing. And a resolution was adopted in the United Nations General Assembly, and the United Nations General Assembly resolution also, in that resolution also, what has happened, like India has abstained from there. India did not vote either in favor or against Russia. Similarly was the stand of China. Okay, so now if we talk about, the this particular concept, like sovereign equality, why it is getting eclipsed. Eclipsed means like when it gets hidden, although it is in place, right? This the principle of sovereign equality is there, but like in the ongoing thing, this sovereign equality, the principle seems to be eclipsed. Eclipse means under the shadow, okay, which is not working currently. Okay, so we will understand that situation. So in this article, the author said that like there were, I mean, like international lawyers, or there were thinkers who told that whether international law is true law is a most common question. Okay, so it is a question, it is a moot question. British jurist Sir Thomas Erskine Holland famously said international law is at a vanishing point of jurisprudence. It is a twilight zone where the aspects of law and morality are inseparable. Okay, apart from this, there was a legal theorist, John Austin. He defined law as the command of the sovereign backed by sanction. Okay, but like if we apply this particular principle, the command of the sovereign backed by sanction, so in that sense, every nation or every state is a sovereign state, so the law made by that particular state will be binding on all the citizens. So that's why like the law made by that particular state will be considered as, I mean, like will be defined as law. But in this sense, when like all these states are there, when all states, I mean like these states that are member of the United Nations organization, as you know that United Nations organization is not a state in itself. It is just a legal body or an organization where other countries are just members. So United Nations organization itself is not a sovereign body. If it is not a sovereign body, then the law made by the United Nations does not have the equal force, equal applicability as a law made by the states in themselves. So that's where this particular concept that United Nations organization being a sovereign body means like it's not a sovereign body. Why? Because it's not a state. It's just an international organization where other state sovereign members are party to it. Okay, so this is the thing. So this actually brings to limelight that the states are presumed to be sovereign and equal, and still international law has been accorded with the status of branch of law. Okay, so here traditionally, if we talk about traditionally what has been international law, international law consists of rules and principles governing the relations and dealings of nations with each other. But recently the scope of international law has been redefined to include relations between states and individuals and relations between international organizations. Okay, so the international law has become broader in scope, all right, and international law has a semi-legal nature. International law has some basic tenets that may be called this particular thing, grand, okay, grand norm. And so sovereign equality of nations is one such grand norm. Okay, so now here we need to understand that like sovereign equality, it is not it is a part of international law, but it is not a law in a strict sense. So it has a semi-legal nature. Okay, so now if we talk about sovereign equality, okay, so it is like sovereign equality is judicial in nature. Judicial means in the eyes of law, all the nations that are sovereign, they will be equal to one another. But here other things also come into picture. Other things means the power, the might of a state, okay, they come into picture. So sovereign equality is judicial in nature, that is all states are equal under international law in spite of inequalities between them in areas such as military power, geographical and population size, level of industrialization and economic development. Okay, here we need to understand that in spite of inequalities, among countries. Inequalities may be, you know, in terms of military power, in terms of geographical and population size, in terms of level of industrialization, in terms of economic development. Okay, so irrespective of all these differences, all the countries are equal in the eyes of international law. But sovereign equality along with collective security, okay, is a fundamental principle of the United Nations. Okay, sovereign equality and collective security, these are fundamental principles of the United Nations organization. So the UN Charter states that the primary objective of the United Nations is to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war. Means, what was the primary objective of the United Nations organization? To save the future generations from the scourge of war. Why? Because United Nations organization was born after the World War has happened. Okay, because like they have seen the devastating impact, devastating effect of, I mean, like, you know, of war. So that's why they created this body to, you know, to stop from another war happening. Okay, but now if we talk about the present situation, this present situation again brings to notion that the United Nations organization is not capable enough. Why? Because like Security Council, if we talk about the United Nations Security Council, which has, I mean, like, you know, which has the sanctioning power, which has, you know, like power to take action against the states, this is in itself not democratic. Why? Because it does not have wider representation. Let's consider if we would have, what we say, United Nations General Assembly, the same power as the United Nations Security Council. Okay, in that case that would be a widely representative body. I mean, like United Nations Security Council also needs to be representative in the sense that, like, you know, the bigger power, other bigger power, or like, you know, multipolar world should be represented there. But at this point of time, United Nations Security Council is not representative enough. Okay, so the principles of sovereign equality and collective security are of the sources of non-aggression and peaceful settlement of disputes among nations. Okay, if we talk about these two principles, principle of sovereign equality and principle of collective security, these two principles should be enough to, you know, like, you know, bring peace into the region. But Ukraine crisis have sabotaged this hope. Means, like, Ukraine crisis like has put this particular hope into question. Okay, now what do we mean by act of aggression? Okay, here we need to understand, like, you know, in international law this particular term is mentioned, act of aggression. Act of aggression means, let's consider a nation. For example, let us take the example of Russia. Russia has, you know, conducted an act of aggression on Ukraine. Why? Because like it has conducted a special military operation in Ukraine, and that special military operation, okay, that special military operation is not, okay, it is not what we say, like this particular military operation was not like, you know, so Russia did not act under any threat or like under the influence of any foreign attack or under any kind of, you know, so Russia is not defensive, it is offensive now, okay, without any kind of threat. Okay, so Russia did not have any threat and so it has acted. Okay, so this is known as act of aggression. So now Russian invasion of Ukraine is an act of aggression and a violation of Ukraine's sovereignty. Okay, it is a violation of Ukraine's sovereignty. Aggression is defined in international law as any use of armed force in international relations not justified by defensive necessity. Okay, it is not justified by defensive necessity, international authority or consent of the state in which force is used. It is an act or policy of expansion carried out by one state at the expense of another by means of an unprovoked military attack. Okay, so this is not a provoked. Okay, so Ukraine did not provoke Russia to, you know, conduct an attack. So it was an unprovoked attack. Okay, so like, you know, it is, so this particular act of aggression is not justified by the defensive necessity or international authority, or there is no consent of the state. I mean, like, Ukraine did not tell Russia that like you attack on us. Okay, that could justify it. Okay, so many treaties and official declarations since World War I have sought to prohibit act of aggression to ensure collective security. Okay, so collective security is an underlying principle of international law. Collective security is an underlying principle of international law. This is what we need to understand. And if we read the Article 2 Clause 4 of the UN Charter, the Article 2 Clause 4 of the UN Charter exhorts member states to refrain in their international relations from the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political dependence of any state, or in any other manner inconsistent with the purposes of the United Nations. Now, let us understand what is the nature of aggression. Aggression is antithesis of sovereign equality and collective security. Okay, sovereign equality says like all these states are equal in the eyes of international law, and if all these states are equal, so they have the right to collective security. But like this act of aggression is antithesis. This is against the principle of sovereign equality and collective security, because we discussed that sovereign equality means all the states are equal irrespective of their geographical size, irrespective of their military capability, irrespective of their population, irrespective of their economic strength and all. Okay, so that's why aggression is an antithesis. Okay, it is an antithesis of sovereign equality and sovereign equity, okay, and collective security. Now, the United Nations Charter contains the doctrine of collective security in Article 39. Okay, if you read the United Nations Charter, it contains the doctrine of collective security under Article 39. So, the Security Council shall determine the existence of any threat to the peace, breach of peace, or an act of aggression, and shall make recommendations or decide what measures shall be taken in accordance with Article 41 and 42 to maintain or restore international peace and security. Okay, so this is what the United Nations Security Council talks about. Okay, under Article 39, it talks about like what is the doctrine of collective security. So the Security Council shall determine whether there is any threat to peace, whether there is any act of aggression or like breach of peace. In that case, they may take action under Article 41 and 42. Okay, so this is what I mean is mentioned in the UN Charter. Charter means something which is similar to the Constitution. Okay, in India we have the Constitution of India. Similarly, the United Nations organization has a document which is known as UN Charter. Okay, that's the thing. So oligarchy in the UN. So let us understand oligarchy. Oligarchy is something under international law where some powerful people are ruling this state. For example, like there is a state, there is a country, but like there may be handful number of powerful people. Majority of the people are poor. All right, majority of the people are poor. Minority of the people, maybe 1% of the people are rich. And if these rich people are ruling over the poor people, that is known as oligarchy. Similarly, there is oligarchy in the United Nations Security Council. Why? Because if we talk about like, if we talk about like United Nations General Assembly, it has representation of all the members of the United Nations, 193 members. So it is democratic in nature because all the members can deliberate upon certain things. But so it is a representative body. But if we talk about the United Nations Security Council, the United Nations Security Council has representation only of few, a few powerful countries. If we talk about P5 members, so they have been the most powerful countries at the time of World War II or at the time of World War I. Okay, so that's the thing. So the cardinal principle of democracy is equality, but the United Nations system that represents the international community is undemocratic and oligarchic. Okay, so it is saying that the United Nations system is undemocratic and oligarchic. this oligarchy of P5, China, France, Russia, the US and the UK, okay. So these 5 countries, China, France, Russia, the United States and the United Kingdom, is an anachronism, okay. The Ukraine crisis once again exposes the pathetic condition of the United Nations system and underscores the demand for democratization of the organization, okay. So here they talked about that Russia vetoed, okay, Russia had a veto power. All the P5 countries have a veto power in the UN Security Council. The UN Security Council has 15 members, but 5 members of them are permanent members, they have the veto power, and other 10 members they rotate, I mean like they keep on changing. So Russia vetoed a draft UN Security Council resolution that would have deplored Moscow's invasion of Ukraine, while China abstained from vote. But the support of nearly 80 countries in favor of Ukraine turned futile at Russia's veto. This is inconsistent with the principle of sovereign equality, okay. So 80 countries have supported in favor of Ukraine's, like they have voted in favor of Ukraine, 80 countries, but only one country, which is Russia, they have vetoed it. So all other countries, votes became inconsistent, okay. So this is inconsistent with the principle of sovereign equality. Now, a rules-based liberal international order, has been a long cherished aspiration of the international community, okay. So like we should have a rules-based international order, and this is what the world has been cherishing upon. But like this particular scenario actually brings into question the effectiveness of the United Nations system, okay. So that's the thing. Here we need to understand, like being like it actually strengthens the India's demand for inclusion in the United Nations Security Council, okay. So that's the thing, right. So now let us discuss about another topic. This topic is related to economy, okay. And here we are going to discuss about one of the scheme of the government of India, which is known as production linked incentives scheme. We will understand about production linked incentives scheme in detail. So government approves PLI plan for 75 auto parts firms, okay. Maruti, Hero, Bosch, Toyota are in the list, okay. So what has happened, the central government, okay, central government recently had approved application of 75 farms, such as these farms, under the component championship incentive scheme, okay, component champion incentive scheme under the production linked incentive scheme for the auto sector. So what is production linked incentive scheme? This is a scheme under which all those companies, all those organizations that are producing something, okay, that are product manufacturing companies, these product manufacturing companies or these product manufacturing units will be benefited by the government of India. They will be given some tax rebate, like they will be incentivized for more production, okay. So under the production linked scheme, like there are 2 sub schemes for the auto sector, and under one of the sub scheme the government of India has approved, I mean like application of these companies. So these companies will get benefited. So the PLI scheme for the automobile and auto components industry, with a budgetary outlay of 25,938 crore, okay. So this particular industry, automobile and auto components industry, will receive a budget outlay of this thing. And this particular PLI scheme, which is production linked incentive scheme, has 2 components. One of the component is known as the champion OEM. OEM means original equipment manufacturer, okay, a company that manufactures the equipment of certain certain automobile or other thing. So they are considered as original equipment manufacturer. For example, if I talk about this particular LED that you can see over here, so so this is screen, I mean like it has this thing. So this might have been prepared by one of the company, okay. So although this particular thing, I mean this screen, it is of LG, but like this is made by MI. Are you understanding? So in this case, MI is the original equipment manufacturer. Okay. So under the production linked incentive scheme, they have two sub schemes. One of the scheme is Champion OEM, Champion Original Equipment Manufacturer. Okay. So Champion OEM incentive scheme, and it has another component which is Component Champion incentive scheme. Okay. So these companies, I mean like these companies, 75 farms have been given the approval under the Component Champion scheme. So under this scheme, all these companies that have received approval, they are going to get benefited by the central government. Okay. So the government had last month approved application by 20 companies, including Hyundai Motor India, Mahindra and Mahindra, Tata Motors, Kia India, etc. Okay. This is just, this brings to the notion what is production linked incentive scheme. You should read about it in detail, when this scheme was launched for the first time. Okay. What are the objectives of those schemes and how it is going to benefit the different production units in India. Okay. What is the budgetary outlay, what is the vision of this scheme? So you need to understand, you need to read about this particular scheme in detail. Okay. So with this, we will take another topic. This topic is also important under international relations. Okay. So this is important for international relations under general studies, paper 2. Okay. So let us understand this topic. It says UN resolution focuses only on one religion. This was the response of India. Okay. So time to acknowledge other phobias. So what has happened recently? Recently the United Nations General Assembly has adopted a resolution, and that particular resolution was moved by Pakistan. Okay. So that resolution proclaims that March 15 should be declared as the International Day to combat Islamophobia. Okay. What has happened globally, many countries have started banning hijab. They have started taking certain actions against those people who are observing their religious religious things. Some people wear hijab, some people wear burqa, means lot of things are there. So these are part of their religious identity. So they do practice in personal life and they practice it in public life as well. But many countries, like if we talk about France, if we talk about UK, if we talk about United States, many such countries have brought about their own law to prohibit the display of religious things in public sphere. So what has happened, it has slowly and gradually created a scenario where people have started developing Islamophobia. The minute they come across an individual who seems to be a follower of Islamic religion, so person gets little bit, what we say, phobia, gets a sense of fear. Why? Because it was created in such a manner. It was created in such a manner. If I talk about people who have beard, okay, so these people are considered to be friends or relatives or terrorists. This is not the scenario. So that's why this particular resolution was moved, and this resolution proclaims that that March 15 should be observed as International Day to combat Islamophobia. Okay. So the United Nations General Assembly adopted this particular resolution. Okay. So but India has expressed concern against it. So it expressed concern over phobia against one religion being elevated to the level of International Day. Okay. So the permanent representative of India to the United Nations, his name is T.S. Tirumurthy, he said that the General Assembly, that India hoped the resolution adopted does not set a precedent which will lead to multiple resolutions based on selective religions and divide the United Nations into religious camps. Now what has happened? The United Nations General Assembly has adopted this resolution, but India also has seen like what is the effect of giving prominence to one religion over other religion, because like India in itself is a multicultural country, it is a diverse country. So we consider ourselves as unity in diversity. Okay, so we find unity in the diversity, diversity in religion, diversity in caste and all. So we understand the basic tenets of unity and diversity. What has happened that like this particular thing, like International Day to combat Islamophobia, this particular day was is adopted by United Nations, means like United Nations General Assembly adopted resolution, but Indian ambassador, okay, permanent representative to the United Nations, he has pointed out this particular fact that like if we elevate one particular religion to the level of International Day, not religion means like the declaration of only one religion, so there will be tendencies of other religious identities to be included in this particular International Day. So there will be a chaos, means like all other religions will think like we should protect ourselves, and we should also define like International Day against Hindu phobia, International Day against Christianophobia, International Day against Buddhist phobia, like that. Okay, so it will lead to that particular thing. So the Indian ambassador had cautioned the United Nations General Assembly that we should not do it, right? Instead, like we should adopt a resolution that talks about International Day against religious against religious hate, like that. Okay, so let me talk about that thing. So here he said that like world has diversity, India has diversity, we know world also has diversity, because like in India we have majority Hindu, then we also have Buddhist religion, we have like Christianity, we have Muslim people, so like we have people of all religions, right? So Hinduism has more than 1.2 billion followers, Buddhism more than 535 million, and Sikhism more than 30 million spread out around the world. So it is time that we acknowledge the prevalence of religiophobia rather than single out just one. So he said like we should understand take a resolution against religiophobia, not against this particular thing to combat Islamophobia. So this United Nations General Assembly has 193 member. Okay, so the 193 member General Assembly adopted a resolution. This was introduced by the Pakistan's ambassador. So they had an agenda, item culture of peace, okay, to proclaim March 15 as the International Day to combat Islamophobia. I hope you understood this particular thing, okay. So why Pakistan has moved? Because like they want to protect that particular religion. Why India is telling against it? Because like only one religion is getting prominence. India says like all the religions must be considered together. So India says like we can adopt something related to against prevalence of religiophobia. That's the thing. So with this, now let us move little further. This is another topic. In this topic we will understand about economic measures. So this talks about growing pressure, okay, growing price pressure. Policymakers need to tame inflation or risk it undermining the growth they seek to support. Okay, so this article actually cautions us that price is increasing for all kinds of goods and services in India. Recently you might have noticed the price of milk has gone up, the price of shampoo has gone up, the price of anything that you purchase from the market, it has gone up. Why it has gone up? Because like retail price has increased, at the same time wholesale price index has increased, so the price of things have increased, and so that's why this article points concerns that the policy makers should like understand the importance, okay, they should understand the importance of controlling the inflation. If they are not able to control the inflation, then they will have to discount, they will have to risk undermining the growth. Okay, undermining the growth means like they have supported like India is going to grow at this particular level, but if inflation goes high, then the growth may get stalled. Okay, so like we give a term that like inflation is increasing but growth is not increasing. Okay, stagflation. So there is a risk of stagflation. So inflation in India continues on a worrying uptrend, with the consumer price index based reading accelerating to an 8-month high of 6.07% last month. Okay, so consumer price index, it has increased beyond 6%. Why it has increased beyond 6%? Because now why we are talking about this particular figure? Because like RBI has a mandate to keep the inflation at check. Okay, 4 plus minus 2%. Okay, so inflation should be at 4 plus minus 2%. So like the maximum value of inflation should not exceed 6%. Okay, minimum value of inflation should not go beyond 2%. Okay, beyond like below 2%. So this is the thing. Okay, 4 plus minus 2. But now the inflation has become, I mean, 6%. Okay, if we talk about the wholesale price index, okay, wholesale price logged a double digit increase for the 11th straight months. Okay, so wholesale price index, WPI inflation is 13.11%. Retail price inflation is 6.07% and WPI inflation, wholesale price inflation is more than 13%. Okay, so the inflation is going up at a very rapid pace. Okay, so retail inflation remained stuck above the RBI's upper tolerance threshold of 6% for the second month. Okay, it's the second month that it has remained below above it. And price gains in the key protein source of meat and fish jumped by almost 200 basis points. Okay, now they are talking about like how the prices of different commodities in the economy has gone up. Okay, in this case the prices of nutrient rich vegetables has gone up. Okay, this is the thing. And even though inflation in oils and fats, okay, inflation in oils and fats eased by more than 220 basis points to 16.44%. Okay, so now they are talking about different goods and services in the economy, means like inflation in fat related thing, inflation in protein sources, etc. It is important for us to understand like what is happening with the retail inflation and the wholesale price inflation. Okay, wholesale price index. So that's why like now who can play the role? The role can be played by the government or by the Reserve Bank of India. How government can play a role? Government can reduce the rate of taxation on goods. Okay, if the rate of taxation goes down, the price of goods and services will go down in the market. So it will have an impact on the inflation level. So it will curb the inflation. How the RBI can keep a tap on inflation? By by changing the key policy rates. Okay, so like it has repo rate, reverse repo rate, but like government, if government takes an step, it will be direct step. Okay, so it will have quick result. If RBI takes an step, it will have an indirect impact. Okay, so that's the thing. So government can do more in this case, although RBI can also do, but like it will have trickle down effect, means like it will have an indirect effect. Firstly it will have an effect on the banks, then it will have an effect on the businesses or consumers. That's the thing. So RBI also conducts a survey that is known as consumer confidence survey. Okay, so RBI conducts consumer confidence survey, and it shows that most households reporting further increase in overall spending on essentials and remaining far from the sanguine on the prices outlook. Okay, so many households are willing to spend more. Okay, so this is the thing. Now let us talk about another topic. Okay, this is topic number 4 for the day. High crude oil prices are unsustainable. India is well braced to cope with surge in import cost, WPI inflation to ease soon. Okay, this is the statement of Finance Ministry. Okay, so the Finance Ministry is saying that the prices, crude oil prices have gone up in the international market. Okay, so countries and people are finding it difficult to purchase goods from international market. Okay, so the Finance Ministry termed the current price levels of crude oil and commodities as unsustainable and said while prices were expected to ease soon, India's record forex reserves had however placed it in a good position to cope with escalation in import costs. Okay, so India has a good forex reserve, and that forex reserve will be able to help India, in meeting the this particular crisis situation. Crisis means the oil prices are going up. Okay, so if we talk about the impact of recent developments, including Russia-Ukraine crisis on India's growth, inflation and current account and fiscal deficit, okay, they would depend on how long commodity prices persist at elevated levels. Now we need to understand, right, that like the Russia-Ukraine crisis has impact on Indian economy. Why? Because like Indian economy is majorly energy dependent. Okay, so like we import our major requirement of energy from outside. If the prices of those crude oil goes up, so the prices of other things in the economy are also bound to go up, because like every sector of the economy is dependent on how the how the travel thing, I mean like how the energy requirement is met. Okay, so if the prices of these things goes up, like prices of crude oil goes up, prices of other things are also going to go up. But here the India's forex reserve is going to help India to maintain that particular thing. Means like India will be able to give subsidy on oil related goods. Okay, so like there had been international agencies that have that have predicted India's growth rate, right, like at what rate the Indian economy is going to grow at the next year. So India's robust growth estimates for 2022 to 23 from agencies such as Fitch Rating, it says Indian economy is going to grow, okay, at 10.3%. And the Moody's, okay, these are US based firms. Okay, the Moody's said like Indian economy is going to grow at 8.4%. But like this particular growth forecast may face a downside risk. Why downside risk? Because of this particular thing, Russia-Ukraine crisis. Because the time when these organizations have forecasted this thing, that time these organizations did not know that something like this is going to happen. Okay, so this this particular estimate may face a downside risk, means like Indian economy may grow at a lesser percent than what has been predicted by these organizations. So tensions between Russia and Ukraine had triggered a massive turbulence in the global economy, with prices of crude oil and other commodities shooting up and escalating the cost of India's import basket. Okay, so India is importing the things, but the prices of those things are going to go up. Okay, they are going to go up. Now let us talk about another topic. It says high crude oil prices are unsustainable. Means like it is the same, it says like it provides a floor. Floor means, now if we talk about geographical situation, okay, conceding that geographical developments had introduced an element of uncertainty into the outlook. The ministry said like however the budget with its capex orientation and prudent assumption along with the strong macroeconomic fundamentals will support growth and provide a floor to it amidst global political turmoil and likely higher volatility in financial market. Okay, so let me talk about one thing. In economy paper this year in prelims exam, you may find multiple questions that talks about inflation, that relates with like international happenings, with how inflation is rising or going down, and like how inflation can be tackled. So we discussed that like Government of India can take steps to reduce the inflation, Reserve Bank of India can take steps, as well as the forex reserves can be beneficial in curbing this particular thing. Okay, so we need to have that framework in mind so that like we can answer the questions. All right. Crude prices were expected to dominate the inflation trend in coming month. Okay, so like all these things are just data, but you need to understand the trend, because like UPSC asks conceptual question, how one thing affects the other. Okay, if you have that relation, if you can connect the dots, if you can connect different things, you will be able to answer questions. Okay, wholesale inflation had averaged 12.7% between April and February due to the low base and would moderate as the effect faded. Okay, so this is the thing. Now with this, let us take another topic. This is again a very important topic for Indian diplomacy. Okay, so this topic is important for GS paper 2. It is important for GS paper 2 under international relations section. Okay, mains exam. Bharatnatyam in Indian diplomacy. India's stand in the United Nations on Ukraine war is an apt moment to reflect on the much needed Dikshit principle. Okay, so late Jyotindranath Dikshit, okay, he is also known as Mani Dikshit to his many friends, took over as the foreign secretary on December 1, 1991. He retired 26 months later. But during this period, I mean, like, foreign diplomacy or like, India's relation with other countries has gone a sea change. Okay, so that's why Dikshit principle is talked about over here. So Dikshit principle means Dikshit said, like, sometimes the diplomats, sometimes the, foreign secretaries may have to do Bharatnatyam. Bharatnatyam means they don't have to perform Bharatnatyam as an act. This is just a corollary, means like they are trying to relate with how diplomacy functions. Okay, they are saying, like, the foreign like diplomats, they sometimes do, some kind of Bharatnatyam, means like people are thinking, like, like they are making that India be viewed, okay, India be viewed internationally differently in different perspectives. Means India should be viewed differently in different perspectives. For example, when we talk about today, we have seen two examples. In one of the example is like, how India has taken a stand in the United Nations General Assembly when a resolution was passed in the General Assembly related to declaration of 15th of March to, as International Day to combat Islamophobia. There India has taken a stand that, like, not only Islamophobia be recognized, but religiophobia must be recognized. Because, like, if we recognize Islamophobia, what's going to happen? Other religions will also come up, they will also think like this day must be recognized as against this thing, like that. Okay. So that was a foreign policy posture of India. That's a foreign policy posture of India. Similarly, if we talk about another example, if we talk about Russia-Ukraine relationship, okay, like motion was moved in the United Nations General Assembly. Many countries have supported, Ukraine and other countries. I mean, like, so that like war of Russia in Ukraine can be stopped. At that place, India did not vote. Why? India did not vote because, like, if India support that resolution, then Russia will, the other countries will think that India is towards us and Russia will think like India is against us. So that will make a clear-cut distinction between white and black. Means white and black means to which side you are standing. If you vote against that resolution, these many countries, I mean, like these many countries who are supporting Ukraine, they will think like India is pro-Russia, India is towards Russia. So it will be against their willingness. Alright. And at the same time, what Russia will do that time, Russia will think is India is towards us. In that case, like India's relation with the United States, with Western countries will go down. Okay. So when India has abstained from voting, so these countries, Russia as well as, what we say, the Western countries, they have received a mixed signal towards it. They have received mixed signal. Means like none of them are clear. What is the standing of India? Okay, so India has not given a clear-cut, things. So here it has, India has maintained a position of neutrality, and at the same time, India has an upper hand here, because like India has said like I am not towards Russia also, I am not towards them also. because something that is happening, we did not create this situation, right? We don't want this situation to continue. We want the peace to be brought about, but like we will not side with any power. This is the standing of India, okay? So that's why India has maintained or abstained from voting or maintained neutrality in this sense, okay? So this is also one of the foreign policy posture of India, okay? So that is known as Bharatnatyam. I mean, like you are showing different, I mean, like foreign policy posture in different situations, right? So this is the thing, okay? Here we need to understand, like this is what the author means by Bharatnatyam in Indian foreign policy, okay? So India has to show its different posture at different situations, okay? So here in this article we are going to discuss about what we are going to discuss. We are going to discuss about some of the foreign policy measures that were taken by India during the prime ministership of Narasimha Rao, during the government of Narasimha Rao. We are going to discuss in detail about it, okay? So these will be what we say, factual information, but like it will take us back to history. History means post-independent India, post-independence history, okay? So this article is also relevant with post-independent history, okay? So let us discuss. Those were times of change, okay? It says those were times of change on December 25, 1991. The Soviet Union's General Secretary, okay, December 25, 1991. So like on the day of Christmas, okay, 1991, the Soviet Union General Secretary Mikhail Gorbachev, he resigned, okay, and the flag of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, okay, Union of Soviet Socialist Republics was lowered for the last time. And the Kremlin, and the following day the USSR was formally dissolved, okay? So USSR was dissolved after the Soviet Union's General Secretary Mikhail Gorbachev has resigned on 1991, okay? So that day, on the following day, means next day, USSR was formally dissolved, and it led to creation of 15 new states, okay? Now this particular situation also brings to limelight one foreign policy stand, how different states are created internationally. Different states are created through different instances. One of the instances, like when a union is dissolved and new states become independent, they come. So that's how like country, or that's how states are formed internationally, okay? So this was one of the thing. Other thing is like one particular area divides, means like comes out of comes out of a big country, so then a state is formed, okay? For example, if we talk about East Pakistan and West Pakistan, East Pakistan has like come out of the West Pakistan, means like it has declared its independence, okay? So that's how a state is formed. Apart from this, few small areas or few states can come together and they can form a new state, okay? So for the formation of states, there are different instances how states can be formed, okay? So this is one practical example how different states were formed. So in the place of USSR, 15 republics emerged. How many republics? 15 republics emerged, and India accepted the challenge and set about the opening new embassies to build new relationships with these countries in Central Asia, South Caucasus and Central Europe, while maintaining its traditional ties with Moscow, okay? So India has established embassies in Central Asia, South Caucasus and Central Europe, okay? Because like these new countries emerged, so India has formed relations with these countries, and it has maintained traditional ties with Moscow, because like Moscow was the major country. I mean, like so if Moscow means Russia, okay? So like main USSR had the policy of Russia, but after they disintegrated, Russia remained a smaller one, but still the biggest country in the world, okay? So January 1992, in January 1992, India and Israel established full diplomatic relations, announcing the opening of embassies and exchanging ambassadors for the first time. So that's how I mean like foreign policy relationship started blossoming between India and Israel and other countries. Now, path to nuclear deal. Now let us talk about another instance where this thing has happened. On January 31, 1992, the Prime Minister P.B. Narasimha Rao participated in the first ever meeting of the United Nations Security Council. Okay, the Prime Minister P.B. Narasimha Rao, he participated for the first ever United Nations Security Council meeting. Okay, at the summit level. India was a member in 1991-92. Okay, India was a member in 1992 at the United Nations Security Council. Okay, because membership keeps on changing, non-permanent member, and it was presided by British Prime Minister John Major. On the sidelines means on one side the Prime Minister of India had participated in that meeting. Okay, means like summit level meeting of the United Nations Security Council, and at the same time he had also had bilateral discussion with the President of the United States, George H.W. Bush. Okay, George H.W. Bush, where the two leaders decided that in the changing world, India and the United States needed to have a frank exchanges on issues that had divided them during the Cold War. The issue identified was nuclear proliferation and disarmament. Okay, so they have discussed like India and USA should be, cooperating with one another on the issue of disarmament and nuclear proliferation. Now, the first meeting took place during Mr. Dixit's visit to Washington 2 months later, showing the seeds of dialogue that continued through ups and downs, leading to the path-breaking India-US Civil Nuclear Cooperation Agreement in 2008. Okay, so this particular discussion that the Prime Minister had that time, it has slowly and gradually led to path-breaking India-US Civil Nuclear Cooperation Agreement. And at the Association of Southeast Asian Nation Summit, means in the ASEAN Summit on January 27, 1992, the Prime Minister Rao's lookist policy began to take shape as India and ASEAN embarked on a sectoral dialogue partnership. By the end of 1995, this had matured into a full dialogue partnership, and in 1996, India joined the Security Dialogue Platform, the ASEAN Regional Forum. Okay, so that's how the cooperation has strengthened over the time. Okay, it has strengthened over the time as the time passed. Okay, now apart from this, now let us discuss about like how the diplomacy, okay, how the diplomacy played its role on China and Taiwan. Okay, China and Taiwan. So why we are talking about Bharatnatyam? We are talking about like how India maintain its foreign policy at different levels differently. Okay, that's important. Now, following the intense negotiations during Mr. Rao's visit to China in September 1993, the two sides initiated the first of many confidence building measures, notably agreement on maintenance of peace and tranquility along the line of actual control in the India-China border areas. Now here we need to see that the Prime Minister of India has visited China in 1993. 1991 something happened. What happened? Disintegration of USSR. 1992 what has happened? ASEAN meeting, ASEAN summit we discussed. 1993 what is happening? The Prime Minister of India visited China, and there they have forced relation. So they have signed an agreement, which is agreement on the maintenance of peace and tranquility along the line of actual control in the Indo-China border areas. This is also important because India is trying to safeguard or secure its border areas, that are bordering the China. Okay, this is the thing. Simultaneously, India and Taiwan negotiated to open economic and cultural centers. Taiwan opened its office first in Mumbai in 1992, and later on they have shifted it to Delhi. Okay, and India also established India Taipei Association Office in 1995. Okay, this is the thing. So now the instances above give an idea how India was responding to the changes taking place around us and in the wider world. Okay, these instances talk about like India, how India has responded in different situations, and according to these situations, what has happened? India has slowly and gradually emerged, right? It has emerged as one of the strongest nation in the world. This is among the strongest nation, and at the same time, now India is playing that diplomacy globally, okay, to maintain its neutrality, to safeguard its interest with other nations. Because the moment it sides with one partner, the other partner is going to get offended, and so it will hamper India in its future trajectories. So this is what the author talks about. This is what the author says, like this is what is known as Bharatnatyam. So this particular author himself was a what we say, like Indian foreign, he has been into Indian foreign services, and he has worked as a junior under Mr. Dixit. I mean, like, who has like worked in these foreign policy initiatives and all. And if we talk about UN veto dynamics, okay, if we talk about UN veto dynamics, what happens in the United Nations Security Council also, in the recent week, the debates and discussions in the Indian media and TV talk shows about India's stand on the Ukraine conflict and its votes in the UN Security Council and General Assembly are appropriate moment to reflect on the Dixit principle. Okay, so the author is saying like this is the appropriate moment for India to reflect on the Dixit principle, to talk about like to do Bharatnatyam, means like to show different posture here. Okay, so that like India can maintain its interest in the long run. So evidently Indian government has chosen to abstain based on the assessment of its core interest. Okay, so India has assessed its core interest, so that's why India has abstained from voting. However, there is a cardinal principle associated with Security Council votes on issues in such charged times. A for and against vote is intended to convey a blunt message of support or opposition. I already discussed about it. Okay, so it is a black and white choice, and once exercised, the messaging is clear. Okay, so that's why abstaining takes India to a gray zone, where like India has an upper hand. Like when the situation will emerge, India may have to take one of the decision, either to support or oppose. But at this point of time, the situation has not arrived. Okay, so the second outcome is positive, but so they have discussed about like what is the outcome of these decisions that the India has taken, okay, in this respect. So that's all that we had to discuss today, and today's articles were mostly based on foreign relations of India. Like it will give you help, it will help you in answering many questions related to IR, because we discussed about certain principles. We discussed about collective security, sovereign equality. We discussed about these principles with reference to the UN Charter. So we discussed about many of these things, so it's going to help you in the longer run. And we have also discussed topics related to economy. Okay, so today the topics were good. Okay, so they were conceptual in nature, and so that's all that we had to discuss for the day. Thank you so much everyone for attending the session. I hope you have a good day ahead. Thank you.